Let's get to hot picks, and I love it when this segment looks at shares we don't talk about very much. We're going to kick off with a player in biotech called Scholar Rock. It is our guest top selection. We're joined by David Nierengarten, Managing Director in Equity Research, Healthcare at Wedbush. Thanks very much indeed for joining us, David.
Thanks for having me.
Start off with Scholar Rock, if you would. Tell us what is their main product or their main thrust, and why do you like the name?
Yeah, they're developing a drug called apitegromab, which builds muscle in patients who have spinal muscular atrophy. It's a rare disease that affects infants and young children, unfortunately causing progressive weakness and eventually an early death. Their drug builds muscle in those patients, helps them prolong or put off disability, as their phase 3 trial showed. It's had a little bit of a bumpy go lately. They disclosed that the FDA had some, quote, observations at a manufacturing plant owned by a contractor that's, could potentially delay their approval, but they still have their approval date on September 22nd scheduled with the FDA. We'll see if that pushes it out, but I still think the potential here is strong, and they should get approved, if not exactly on September 22nd, hopefully in short order as our contractor cleans up that manufacturing site.
And obviously, this would be a wonderful thing for parents and babies if it works, but is there much commercial potential here?
It does have a $1 billion plus potential in our opinion. There are other SMA drugs out there that work a little bit differently, that don't build muscle but help with the symptoms, and they sell combined well over $1 billion a year. This drug is designed to be combined with those existing agents, so they have the entire market available to them. They're not competing with the same mechanism with the other approved drugs out there. So I think it has a great potential.
Right, and their market cap about $3.3 billion US. So if it's a drug with $1 billion annual revenue potential, that's a reasonable valuation. I know it's hard to generalize.
Yeah, typically biotechs trade around 5 to 6x sales. Oh. So I think they have room to run as they launch this drug. It's also clearly a prime acquisition target. It's a relatively rare disease, easy to manage sales force, relatively speaking, and should be a nice acquisition for a larger pharma in the future.
That's interesting. A smaller sales force obviously is a big cost saving. The next company is Argenx.
Yes.
They're working on a pre-filled syringe format for an approved drug. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so they already have that. That was recently approved. So the stock, the company suffered a little bit in Q1. They had a little bit of a margin hit as they were building out the capacity to manufacture this pre-filled syringe for their approved drug, Vyvgart, for myasthenia gravis. I think that hiccup is over with. They had a great second quarter. And the pre-filled syringe obviously much more convenient for patients than going into the doctor to get an injection or an infusion. And the temporary hit to margins is going to be easily overcome by continued significant growth in market share for this drug, Vyvgart, in myasthenia gravis and what's called CIDP patients, both neuromuscular diseases.
And then finally, it's an Australian idea, Telix, and diagnostic and radiopharmaceuticals, and prostate cancer is one of the ailments that they are aiming at.
Yes. Yeah, so Telix had just reported earnings last night in America, morning in Australia. And I think they had a couple misunderstandings, again, over the past quarter about their margins and their diagnostic and imaging business. They acquired a manufacturing and distribution company earlier in the year. They were distributing lower margin products, but really the integration hit their margins a little bit. I think that's going to be rectified here very shortly. They have a next generation imaging agent, Telix, for prostate cancer patients that should be ramping up around October 1st when they have an individual code for it and such that doctors can use easily. They also have a PDUFA date next Wednesday for their kidney cancer imaging agent, which is a pretty open $500 million plus dollar market, and their targeted radiopharmaceutical candidate, not the imaging, is in the pipeline. They dosed 30 patients in combination with other drugs. We'll get some early data from that probably early next year, and hopefully that will help catalyze some enthusiasm around that potential prostate cancer drug candidate.
And we were just looking there. Last time I checked, in Australian trading, it was up today. So it looks like the latest number is well received.
Yes, and it was up in U.S. trading. They do have U.S. listed shares. It was also up this morning. Yeah, and the earnings report was well received. Again, I think they explained well, the temporary hit to margins on the imaging side. And I think Gazellix will come into its own over the next year, improve margins and revenues on the prostate cancer imaging, in addition to Zircaix, which is the kidney cancer imaging agent.
Sorry, just before we let you go, is prostate cancer a huge market?
Prostate cancer is a huge market. There's several multi-billion-dollar drugs in that market. The radiopharmaceutical agent Pluvicto that Novartis markets does well over $1 billion in sales, and that's not counting the other androgen receptor inhibitors and other classes of drugs in the field that do multiple billions of sales. It's unfortunately a very common cancer in men.
Just before we let you go, David, how is it being a pharma analyst these days with the rapid progress in data and CRISPR gene editing? Is it hard to keep up? It's an exciting time, I know.
What makes it the most difficult right now, or recently, has been the explosion of Chinese biotechs and research that has it really made it a little bit more challenging to follow new developments or potential competition, because again, the Chinese market is a little bit less transparent than ours and a little bit less well researched.
That's interesting, yeah, but of course, incredible technology work being done in that country. David, thank you very much indeed. David Nierengarten, Managing Director, Equity Research, Healthcare at Wedbush.